Ladies and gentlemen, we interrupt your regularly scheduled programming to bring you this special bulletin. There comes a time in a product's life, whether it is a TV show, a movie, a video game, heck, even a book, that you must admit defeat. You must admit failure. It's time to just take your lumps and move on. And I'm not sure what the usual suspects, what the AAA studios expect us to think, other than, well, based on the numbers we're seeing, the things that are actually being reported, and even what's not being reported, well, there's nothing else to say but Dragon Age, the Veilguard. It seems to be a pretty appropriate name for it. I've got a couple of articles to check out and a few numbers. This is all just speculation based on, based on the numbers, based on what we're seeing. And yeah, I'm not sure what other conclusions we can come to, especially since, well, BioWare and EA refuse to give the information out. We are going on 11 days, almost 12, since the release of this game, and we have not seen a single solitary figure, not one sales figure. You would think that if this game was such an astronomical success, a return to norm, that they would be screaming it from the rafters. But I guess that's the hill they don't want to die on. Over here on Fandom Pulse, we'll start over here. Dragon Age the Veilguard. Yeah. Peak player count decreases over 30% from the all-time peak in just a week. Now, for some games, that might be fantastic, but when the numbers are already low, they just keep getting lower and lower and lower. Veilguard hit a peak concurrent player count of 89,418 on Sunday, November 3rd, the opening weekend. I thought for sure it was going to hit 100,000, if not more. Some people thought 150,000, just based on the name Dragon Age, the popularity of the IP. Just based on that alone, surely it'll sell over 100,000, or not sell over 100,000. There is speculation on how many hundreds of thousands it sold, but surely the player count on Steam would be well over 100, closer to 150. Now, there's two ways to state this lovely little number there. You could say it almost hit 90,000, or you could say it couldn't even hit 90,000, depending on your perspective. One's good, one sounds good, one sounds bad, but honestly, when it comes to a AAA game that is in development for 10 years, the prospect of spending 200,000, I said it again, I'm getting mixed up, $200 million in development, 10 years in development, coming from BioWare, part of the Dragon Age franchise. Surely it would have done better than that. A week later, peak player count only hit 61,000. It's not doing very good numbers. Now, what do we have to compare that to as far as percentages go? Decline of 31%. Well, we got a couple of numbers here. Baldur's Gate 3 hit an all-time peak concurrent player count. Oh, we don't want to use that number. 875,000. We don't want to, because it just makes the Veilguard look so much worse. A week later, the peak player count had only declined to 813,000. I wonder if that's because Baldur's Gate 3 was a lot more enjoyable. Outside of the, bear scene, you make your decision on that one, whether you like it or not. Although the squirrel, no, anyway, that is only a decline of 7.9%. However, it hit its all-time peak on its second weekend, which I think that's an accomplishment in and of itself. On its first Sunday, August 6th, after release, it hit a peak of 814,000. So it saw its peak concurrent player count actually increase. Oh, wow. It increased by 7.4% from its first weekend to its second weekend. Now that I would definitely consider an astronomical success. Now, Baldur's Gate 3, it says here, 76% higher concurrent players. Look, I mean, this whole video is beating a dead horse while it's down, but, how far do we really want to go? But what about Elden Ring? 953,000 concurrent players, almost 1 million concurrent players. My goodness. March 5th, after a week, hitting its all-time peak, it dropped down to 825,000. That's a decline of 13%. Again, what could have possibly been the cause? We're going to go with a fun game. Let's see. Furthermore, the game hit its all-time peak in its second weekend. Again, we have an instance where a game hit its all-time peak concurrent players on its second weekend. Unfortunately, I don't think Dragon Age the Veilguard did that. But what else could we turn to see what kind of an astronomical failure that is Dragon Age the Veilguard? My goodness. When you get to the point where even GameStop doesn't want your copy, if you actually went out and bought a hard copy, that does not bode well. Over here on that Park Place, practically worthless after only a week. Trade-in values plummet. It's no secret that Dragon Age the Veilguard has been having a rough go. Well, that's an understatement. And since it's launching on Halloween, not only did the game fail to reach 90,000 concurrent players, let's beat them while they're down, but inside sources allege that the game has barely moved 500,000 copies. Now, I do wonder, is that from Steam? Is it across all platforms? Steam, PlayStation? Which platforms across all platforms? And how are they figuring in the refunds that's being reported that everybody wants to get out of this? I do have questions. Even the gaming access media, which heaps lavish praise upon BioWare RPG, has seemingly left it behind. Not only did they leave it behind, but the only rat himself, Jason Schreier, went and deleted his little post owning the chuds. Now that spells confidence in the product, doesn't it? He didn't even like the game. He just wanted to so-called own the chuds because there were so many people playing the game. Except there aren't. Let's see what we got here. YouTuber Endymion with his sources. Again, we take this with a grain of salt. However, the more often that Endymion is correct, the more it leads to his own credibility. Where, once is a coincidence. 2 and 3 times, well, that's a pattern. And it seems to be that Endymion is becoming more and more correct as he talks about the information he gets from his sources. So, you make that decision for yourself. We'll see where all this goes. Here's his quote. I'm also told in terms of refunds that currently the game has had at least 333. I was about to say 300,000. Oh, that would be devastating. 30,000, although 30,000 refunds in the past few days isn't a great thing. Not for BioWare, not for EA, not for Dragon Age. Which is not good for your game, not good for any game that has barely sold 500,000. You know what? Even if you want to be generous, let's say 750,000 copies, that is still not nearly enough to come close to breaking even based on the projected budget of this game. AAA game, AAA studio, 10 years in development, $200 million budget. Nothing, not really a hard guess to make. Good Lord, I can't even think right now. Not good for your game that has barely sold 500,000 copies to be hemorrhaging players like this. Well, they already got their money. They're not getting the refunds, but less and less people are playing it. So considering it's going to take you 40 to 100 hours just to beat the game, people are walking away from it. So far, I have definitely walked away from it. I don't think I'm going to play another minute of this game, not even in my off time. The dialogue, the action, the combat, the story is just so not for me. I'm going to say that. No, it's boring. I was getting bored. Let's see. So generally speaking, Veilguard is not a commercial success. Again, not a difficult conclusion to come to. Most of those refunds likely came from digital stores like Steam, Xbox, and PlayStation. Unlikely it came from PlayStation because PlayStation does not like giving refunds. Steam? Sure. PlayStation? Sorry. You bought it, paid for it. Even if you didn't download it, you're screwed. Or is it no? I think once you download it, even if you don't play 1 second of the game, you're screwed. These online platforms allow players to return the game for a full refund within 2 weeks. Oh, do they? Did something change? I know Steam has this policy. Within 2 weeks of purchase, as long as you have less than 2 hours of gameplay logged. It's a policy that lets players try a new game with no risk. When did PlayStation pick up that refund policy? Yeah, let me know in the comments. It's a policy that lets players try a new game with no risk. If they don't like it, they can just return it quickly, which apparently quite a few players did in this case. But what about the trade-in numbers? For those people who purchase physical copies, not much they can do, considering it's a $70 game. Over here on the GameStop website, looks like you can get up to $22. Oh boy. Well, I guess it's better than nothing. But again, just like before, we all know that GameStop doesn't GameStop doesn't like to give you anything for your trade-in, hardly anything, but what do we have that to compare it to? Well, we have a few things. As you can see in the link above, Veilguard is listed at being worth up to $22. That means $22 for an utterly pristine copy. And of course, depending on the mood of the person at the store and whether or not they decide it's a pristine copy. Considering a brand new copy of Veilguard is, we're going to go with $70 or $69, Katie. The game has seen a devaluation of 31.88% in 12 days. When you compare that to other games, let's see what we got. So we have Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom, game that came out on September 26th, is worth $33. Dragon Ball Z Sparkling Zero hit stores a month ago, less than, a lot more than 2 weeks. October 11th, worth $27 on PlayStation 5 and $33 on Xbox. My goodness, these are games that came out long before, well, in video game lifespans, yes, long before. Call of Duty Black Ops 6 is another recent release that came out just under a week ago before Veilguard on October 26th. It has a trade-in value of $38.50. Now, isn't Black Ops 6 free on Xbox Game Pass? And if you have Xbox Game Pass Ultimate, it's free on PC as well. So even if you get a physical copy of it, it's still worth more. A game you can get for free with Game Pass on Xbox has a higher trade-in value than Dragon Age the Veilguard. Let's just think about that for a second. But what makes it even worse, Veilguard's worth up to $22, matches Legends of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, a game that came out a year and a half ago. My goodness. Even GameStop doesn't want your copy of the Veilguard. GameStop valuation after just over a week in stores doesn't bode well for how Veilguard is performing. Well, obviously, there's a lot of things that don't bode well for how Veilguard is performing. I've said it before. They're not telling us the numbers. So what are we supposed to think? We come to conclusions. We have our sources. We have different little metrics. Other people found a little website on what's selling, and they go off of achievements as well. Let's see, vast number of players attempt to trade in the game, value plummets, and we're seeing that here. Oh, yes. The more people, supply and demand, of course that's going to affect it. Why didn't I think of that? The reason why Tears of the Kingdom is worth the same is because people aren't trading it in. Black Ops 6, people aren't trading it in. Dragon Ball Z, Echoes of Wisdom, people aren't trading it in. With the Veilguard, people bought it, they don't like it, they turn it back in, but so many people are turning it in, its value is plummeting as a trade-in. So what on earth, what else are we supposed to think, except that, well, Dragon Age the Veilguard could be the demise of BioWare over at EA. Can we see some layoffs in the future for a once beloved game studio? Maybe if they finally release the sales numbers, we might have something else to go on. But so far, we can only speculate, and that's what we're doing. But anyway, let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Leave a like, leave a dislike, do all those nifty little things that YouTube is begging you to do. And thank you for making it this far. Have a good one.